Christmas, and if I was going to be Mrs. Claus, I wanted to dress the part. Up ahead, I saw Mom climb onto the float. Small children scrambled up after her. The teenagers took their positions and immediately pulled out their smartphones while waiting to begin. Parents milled about, snapping pictures. "Ho, ho, ho!" Santa Claus boomed, waving greetings left and right as he walked through the crowd, heading for his own float. The youngest children squealed in delight. The teenagers rolled their eyes and continued texting, while the parents clapped their hands and tried to look thrilled. It was, of course, not Santa, but my dad, the appropriately named Noel. Dad's round stomach was real, as was his thick white beard and the shock of white curls only slightly tinged with gray, even though he was coming up on 60. He totally looked the part in the traditional Santa costume of red suit with white fur cuffs, red and white hat, wide black belt, and high black boots. I was the last one onto my float. I grabbed my long skirts in one hand. Jackie took the other and hauled me up with as much grace as if she were landing a pike through a hole in the ice. "Everyone ready?" I called. The children cheered. It seemed like we might actually be able to pull this off. This was the first year I owned my own shop in Rudolph, and thus was responsible for my own float. But in the past, I'd always tried to get home to help with the parade. Other years, we'd used a handful of the younger kids from Mom's classes to sit on the float. But this year, without consulting me first, she decided to make the parade the focus of their fall program. All told, there were 30 children, aged 5 to 17. I decorated the float so it looked like Santa's workshop. It had bales of hay for the elves to sit on, a couple of battered old wooden tables as workbenches, whatever I could scrounge in the way of hammers for tools, and some broken toys that looked like they were still being assembled. It was, I thought proudly, just great. George Mann, a crusty old farmer who'd been roped into helping by my dad, provided the tractor that would pull the float. I'd tried to get George to dress in costume, but he looked me in the eye and said, "No." I doubted George owned anything but muddy boots, brown overalls, and faded flannel shirts anyway. If anyone asked who he was supposed to be, I'd say the farmer in charge of the reindeer. I had high hopes for my float. My goal was nothing less than the Best in Parade trophy. One thing we didn't have to concern ourselves with was creating a North Pole-like atmosphere. Here on the southern shores of Lake Ontario, we get snow. A lot of snow. It was falling now, big, fat, fluffy flakes. The temperature hovered just below the freezing point, and there was no wind. People would be comfortable standing on the sidewalk or sitting on blankets spread out on the curb while waiting for the parade. All the shops, including mine, Mrs. Claus's Treasures, were closed this morning, so everyone could participate in the festivities. But the business development office had set up stands at regular intervals to serve hot drinks and baked goods. The semi-annual Santa Claus Parade is the highlight of the tourist year in Rudolph. People come from hundreds of miles away to see it. When I'd walked through town this morning, going to check that the float had survived the night, I'd noticed that all the hotels and B&Bs had no vacancy signs outside. That would make everyone happy. I say semi-annual parade because we have one in July also. What the heck? Gotta get those tourists, to town somehow. The parade assembly area was in the parking lot behind the town's community center. This morning, the lot was a churning mass of adults and children in costume, marching bands, flags, floats, some definitely better than others, and tractors to pull them. "Hey, kids, give us a smile," a voice called out. Russ Durham, editor-in-chief of the Rudolph Gazette, lifted his camera, and the giggling children struck a pose. Jackie, supposedly embarrassed to be seen in her costume, leapt to her feet and